In this video, we want to start the new chapter, the chapter 4. As you can see here, the chapter 4 is about oxidation and reduction. We will explain later on what is the oxidation and reduction reactions. But in the chemistry you have a lot of chemical reactions. So the scientists divided them into the different groups. Some group of the chemical reactions are mentioned here in your book. For example, neutralization reaction. Do you know what is neutralization reaction? So you must guess what is neutralization reaction from neutral. Neutralization reaction is reaction between the acid and bases. So if acid and bases reacts with each other, they neutralize each other. That's why it is said that they are neutralization reaction. Another type of the reaction is precipitation reaction. So precipitation reaction are a group of the reactions with a precipitate forms. So that's why we call them precipitation reaction. But what is precipitate? If you have two solutions, okay, and you mix them, sometimes by mixing two solutions, a solid material forms. So this solid material we call it precipitate. So this solid material which forms upon mixing two solution, we call it precipitate. So that's why if you mix two solution and a solid forms or precipitate forms, this type of the reactions are called precipitation reactions. Okay, so these are just some groups of the chemical reactions that we have, but we don't want to talk about that one. We want to talk about the oxidation and reduction reaction. What is oxidation and reduction reaction? Here is mentioned. So here the definition of oxidation is given, and here the definition of the reduction is given. So you can understand what is oxidation and reduction reaction. So it says oxidation is gain of electron. A gain of oxygen is called oxidation. And what is the reduction? Here's mentioned a loss of oxygen is called reduction. So we have the definition for the oxidation reduction here in your book. Okay, so but I want to expand this definition, so I want to add something to these two definitions. So it says a gain of oxygen is called oxidation. Also, loss of hydrogen is called oxidation. So loss of hydrogen is called oxidation. So if a substance gained oxygen, we say that substance is oxidized. Or if you have a substance and in the reaction it loses hydrogen, we also say that substance is oxidized. Okay, let's go to the reduction. It says the loss of oxygen is called reduction. We have another definition based on the hydrogen. We can say gain of hydrogen is called reduction. So we have two definitions for each one of them so far. Okay, so if you talk about the oxidation, oxidation means gaining oxygen or losing hydrogen. Okay, so I want to write it here, losing hydrogen. And if you want the definition of the reduction, we can say the reduction is losing oxygen or gaining hydrogen. Okay, so let's look at some examples based on the definitions that we have here. Okay, so look at these reactions which you have here. What happens to the magnesium? Magnesium is reacted with the oxygen and it is converted to magnesium oxide. The reaction you can see here in this picture, okay? The reaction is highly exothermic. It means it releases a lot of heat, okay? And we say it burns in air with a white flame. So you can see a white flame here in this container. That is burning of magnesium. Okay, so when the magnesium burns in the air, it reacts with oxygen and it produces magnesium oxide, MgO. So what happens to the magnesium? Magnesium has gained the oxygen, so it's converted to the magnesium oxide. So this reaction is called oxidation reaction. So we have oxidation reaction for magnesium. Now let's go to have an example for the reduction. So look at this picture that you have here. So here you have a copper trioxide. Copper trioxide is a black substance, okay, as you can see in this picture. And here the hydrogen gas passes over this copper trioxide, okay, and we apply the heat here. By application of the heat here, the hydrogen and copper trioxide react with each other. The reaction is written here. Copper trioxide reacts with the hydrogen. So what is the product? The products are copper and water. So what happens to the copper trioxide? The copper trioxide has lost the oxygen. So that's why we say copper trioxide is reduced. Okay, so this is an example of a reduction reaction that you have here. Okay, let's move on. Look at this picture that you have at the bottom of page 67. Let's talk about the picture at the left. The picture at the left is extracting the iron. In the nature, you don't have the iron. What do you have in the nature? In the nature, you have iron trioxide. Okay, you know from the previous chapter that the iron 3 is composed of Fe3 plus and oxide, which is O2 minus. So this 2 comes here, 3 goes here. So the formula would be Fe2O3, which is written here. Okay, it's just the revision from the previous chapter. Okay, so in the nature, you have iron trioxide, but iron trioxide is useless. You cannot use that one. You need to extract the iron from that. So it's what we do in this case, we put these iron trioxide into these containers, which we call them furnace, blast furnace, and we apply a large amount of heat. By applying the heat, the iron trioxide reduces. What does it mean? It means it loses its oxygen. So when it loses its oxygen, the iron trioxide converts to the iron. So this is an example of the reduction reaction that you have in the industry. Let's go to the picture at the right side. What can you see? What can you see here? I can see a bicycle which is rusted. Okay, so the bicycle is made from iron. Okay, stainless steel, which is majority of that is iron. But if you put it in the air and there is some moisture in the air, the iron converts to Fe2O3, converts to the iron trioxide. So what happens to the iron here in the bicycle? It has gained the oxygen and converted to Fe2O3, which is rust. So here the iron is oxidized. So here the oxidation is very bad for us because the bicycle rust based on this reaction. Okay, let's move on to the next picture. Okay, so look at these reactions that is written here. So you have copper trioxide here. It reacts with the hydrogen and the products are copper and water. Okay, so what happens to the copper trioxide? It has lost the oxygen. So this is the reduction reaction. And we say copper trioxide is oxidized. And what happened to the hydrogen? The hydrogen has gained the oxygen, H2O. So this is oxidation reaction. Okay, and we say H2 is oxidized. So a substance which is oxidized or reduced always is reactant. Okay, so if in the question they ask you which substance is oxidized or which substance is reduced, you have to look at the reactants. Okay, so one of the reactants is copper dioxide. On the other side it becomes copper. It means it has lost the oxygen. So this one is reduced. So the reaction of converting copper oxide to copper is reduction. What happened to H2? It has gained the oxygen here. So we say H2 is reduced, and the reaction of converting H2 to H2O is oxidation. So in any chemical reactions, the oxidation and reduction always take place together. This is very important. You cannot have only oxidation or only reduction, because if a substance loses the oxygen, there must be another substance to gain that one. Okay, so it means if some substance loses the oxygen or reduce, the other substance is being oxidized. Or we can say if a substance gains the oxygen as being and it is being oxidized, the other substance must lose the oxygen. So it must gain the oxygen from the other substance. So the other substance is reduced. So that's why oxidation and reduction always take place together. Okay. So that's why to this reaction sometimes called redox reaction. So redox, the first part, redox, RED, comes from reduction, and ox comes from oxidation, to emphasize that these two reactions happens together. So these two terms are same. You can say oxidation reduction reaction, or they can simply say redox reaction. They are same. Okay, let's have more example about the oxidation and reduction reaction. Okay, so look at here. The calcium reacts with the oxygen, it becomes calcium oxide. So what happens to the calcium? Calcium has gained the oxygen, it becomes calcium oxide. So the conversion of the calcium to calcium oxide is oxidation. And because we said we must have oxidation reduction together always, converting O2 to CaO is reduction. Okay, it's not very clear how it is reduction, but since the calcium obviously oxidizes to CaO, so the oxygen, we can say easily it's reduced to CaO. Later on we will have another definition for the oxidation reduction, so this problem will be solved. Okay, let's go to the next example. Reaction of the hydrogen with oxygen, it produces water. So what happens to the hydrogen here? It has gained the oxygen and becomes H2O. So converting H2 to H2O is oxidation reaction. We must have reduction. O2 converts to H2O, it is reduction. So what happens to O2? It has gained the hydrogen. Okay, if you remember, we said another definition for the reduction is gaining hydrogen. So here the oxygen is reduced and the hydrogen is oxidized. Okay, let's talk about these two pictures that we have here. So what happening here? Here you can see you have a hydrocarbon here which is burning. Okay, the burning is a redox reaction. In the burning, the hydrocarbon reacts with the oxygen. So the burning is an example of a redox reaction. You have also the burning here when the fuel burns in the vehicles. Okay, so the burning, you can have it everywhere. So you can see the redox reaction is very important. You can see it everywhere. Also, what happens inside your cells for getting energy? Your cells, for getting energy, it burns the glucose, okay, through the process which we call it respiration. So you have redox reaction inside your cells as well. Okay, So that's why the redox reaction is very important, and we have a special category of the reaction in chemistry which we call them oxidation reduction reaction or redox reaction. Okay, so this is about section 1 of this chapter. You have some questions here. So I won't answer the question right now, but I ask you to write down the answer. Later on, I will make another video and I will answer this question. You can check if your answer was correct or not. So this is a good practice for you.